Tonight's episode is called Flip the Chip Pan. Basically, primer's dry on the bottom side here, and I want to prime the other side. And so I want to basically roll the chip pan over so it's facing up. And this thing is just so heavy and hard to deal with all alone, and in the absence of being able to call any manpower down here. I'm going to try and figure out a way to rig this up and get it flipped over. I think I got a couple ideas. Alrighty, here's the plan. Well, since I can't be over there pumping that at the same time as I'm over here trying to study this thing, I rigged up my chain fall, got the hoist up high, got my chain fall on there. I'm going to hook onto this and use this to try and flip it over. But I got to hook on from the underside. Well, on my hardware I had these giant eye hooks, and I think these are actually supposed to go through telephone poles, so guy wires can attach to them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this up from the underside, hopefully, use this big washer and bolt, and then hook my chain fall onto the bottom. So far it's working, but at some point I'm going to get past that critical vertical point and it's going to want to flip back the other way, so I'm going to be wary of that. And I realized that as it was going to want to tip, then the chip pan bottom edge was going to want to slam that way and try and go underneath the legs of the cherry picker. So I put the blocking in there, and that did it. It worked. You can see right there, that's where it wanted to go underneath. If it wasn't for the wood, then the metal ends of the legs would be digging into the pan right now. Voila! It slipped right up those blocks of wood and righted itself, and since that hole's pretty much in the middle, it's fairly balanced actually. Wow, that's a bummer. Flip this pan over. Look at this. This is the underside of the pan that just a week ago was perfectly clean, and I've got surface rust, oxidation. That's just, I guess, moisture from the concrete. Not sure, either that or moisture from when I was using the water and washing down the other side. It's interesting, it's only on that section over here on the end here. So I'm going to have to clean that up, and of course I was planning on wiping all this dust residue off of this thing before priming it anyways, but yeah, it's just that's one of the things I'm worried about here, because we're starting to head into spring has begun, and the water table is high around here, and that gets things a little moist in this basement. And I can run a dehumidifier, but the dehumidifier is not effective at low temperatures, so it doesn't really start working well until the temperature here in the basement starts to come up a little more. But I guess I'm going to have to hook that dehumidifier up and make sure it's at least doing something. And my thermometer says it's 58 degrees in here. Well, it's a nice day. It's April 6th, and it was nice and warm out today, so I decided to haul the legs up out of the basement and clean them out here. I was using that 3M engine degreaser, and I'll tell you, that stuff, that's practically a paint remover as far as the paint that's on this old lathe is concerned, because you can see the color of the water is the color of the paint. And I just spray it on, wait about 5-10 minutes, come back and hose it off, and the force of the spray from my hose attachment there is actually just blasting the paint off. And it's doing a pretty good job. I'm not going to take every speck off like that. I'm going to just get it down in the basement after it dries off, rough it up with a wire brush, and prime it. Oh, and this is an interesting little thing right here that I found underneath all this dirt. There's a little brass tag right here, and it's actually says L-14. So that's probably was put there by the company that owned the lathe, that originally had it as a production lathe. And I could just imagine, back years ago, a large factory floor where this was maybe one of at least 14 lathes in a row doing work. I've seen some photographs like that. Kind of neat to think about it that way. The only thing that would be neater is if there was actually a company name on the tag, but unfortunately it just says L-14. Well, it's a nice day outside today, so working on legs. I just got done wire wheeling this one. That's the Hendey leg. And I got that one there I got to do next. I've actually decided I don't want to paint over this little brass plaque with the number on it. So I've got some painter's tape on here now, and I'm just going to use my X-Acto blade here and trim it. Ah, there we go. It's not perfect, but you might even get a little bit of bleed, but that's all right. It's not like I'm planning on taking this lathe to a classic show, like a classic car show where they're gonna have judging or something. So, okay, once again, we're using the Sherwin-Williams brand all-surface enamel oil-based primer on this, and I'm not going to bore you guys with a video of me painting. You've seen me do that before. So I'll touch base with you in a minute. So I've got this whole side coated. I got some drips I got to take care of there, but now I want to pick it up and turn it around. And of course, the problem is, how do I pick it up? Well, I've got the holes in the top there, so I'll just thread a couple of bolts in there and use those to pick it up and turn it around. So I've got this huge bolt, and I put one nut on there and stick it in like that, and then I'll put another nut on. And that gives me one handle to get a really good grip on it, and then I just need a short one over here since I don't have another huge long bolt like that, and that'll help me swivel it. Well, I just finished priming the chip pan, and did a couple last minute decisions, one of which was back here on this leg. I also decided not to paint this rod right here. This rod with the locking nut, I don't know if this was something that was made by somebody after the fact and added to the lathe, or if this actually would be something that they would have put on at the factory. I think it was actually added, but whoever did it did a pretty nice job. And I kind of like the idea of having this hook here. I forgot what was on this when I first saw the machine. I think it was actually a strange hand wheel on here, which we'll have to dig that out at one point and see whether or not there's any evidence that that could have been part of a collet closer. But I decided that if I paint this, sliding the things on and off of here are just going to rub that paint off so quickly that it's going to be actually better if I just keep it bare metal. So I'm going to keep that bare metal. I don't think I'm going to have too much trouble with it rusting. And if it does a little bit, then I can just clean it up with emery paper and oil it or something. So the leg is pretty much done. And then on the chip pan, the other last minute decision I made was I decided to forego priming and also painting this trough area that's going to be completely invisible under the screen. Once the screens are back in place, you're not going to see that anyways, and it's just going to be filled with a lot of oil and gook and stuff, so I don't have to really worry about that rusting. And so why waste the paint and primer on that? It's pretty cool down here in the basement. It's probably about 55 degrees, so that paint, or that primer I should say, really is thick. But I was able to brush it on with the foam applicator brush, and I'm satisfied. So that's going to be it for tonight. Alright, it's a day later, and the primer on the legs and the chip pan is all dry. So now I'm going to decide I'm going to reattach the legs to the bottom of the chip pan, and when I do the final painting, I'm just going to paint it as an assembly. So putting the legs on should be pretty easy now with the cherry picker here, and I've got my eye bolt configuration deal still in there. I'm just going to hook onto that, pick the whole pan up, put a leg underneath each end, and bolt it on. I actually had to settle for temporarily bolting the legs on because I forgot that I left the original bolts that bolted on, or they're outside out in that outer tent thing, so I'm not going out there and getting them tonight. It's too dark. I'll never find them. Easier to get them in the morning. So I'm just using these bolts that I've been using to block off these holes. You know what, I think before I put this leg on, I'm going to prime the back of it. I did clean the back of this one up, degreased it, but I didn't go hog wild with the wire brush on the back of this one. I just didn't degrease the top here, but that gets completely hidden when it's put back together. The other leg, I think I forgot to clean the inside of it completely, so that's why I didn't do anything to it last night. And I was just going to ignore it but now I'm wondering whether or not that's going to come back to haunt me, if it's going to bug me, because at the very least down there, I mean right there, right now it sticks out like a sore thumb because it's white primer, but I'm going to be going with a darker color, I think, for my finished colors. So I don't know, I think I should at least hit the lower parts of those legs. This one I'll prime the whole inside of it because it's pretty much ready. Alright, well I got this side, the inside of that leg primed, and I'm not going to bolt it on tonight because I got some, I got to reach underneath there with the bolts and liable to get paint all over my hands by accident. I'm going to wait till tomorrow when I can get the proper bolts and bolt this leg on, and then swap out those temporary bolts on that one, bolt that leg on, and then I think what I'll do is I'll lift the whole thing up, get it up off the ground, and do a quick cleaning of the inside of that leg where I missed and prime the inside of that leg, and then this will be actually ready for the first coat of paint, which I haven't bought yet, but at least that'll be another thing that'll be done. I'm thinking I might put my might put some boards underneath here with casters on them again, so that I can just wheel this out of the way and get some more room down here to go to work on other things. Tired of the SIP drill press base sitting over there. I want to prep that and do a quick rattle can paint job on that thing. And I want to take the knee off so I can clean the ways, or the, for lack of a better term, I guess I think you would call those ways, but the vertical dovetail-like surfaces there that it slides up and down on need to be cleaned up. The worm gear underneath it there that raises and lowers it, that needs to be cleaned up and relubricated so that it works nice and smooth. Well, I located all my bolts that I took out from the legs. Oddly enough, I've got quite an assortment. This one's got a thick head on it. This one's more like a regular bolt. This one's got a square head. But these are actually the bolts that I took out, so I don't know if somebody had the legs off at some point and lost some of the bolts, or what the story was there. But alright, so I'm going to put them back in. Just got done cleaning them. Wow, it took me longer to do that than I expected. It was really difficult getting the things lined up just right so that the bolts would go in without cross-threading. But I was able to finally get all the bolts in and tightened up. So I think next I'm going to lift up that end and get a plastic bucket or something underneath it so that I can clean the inside of that leg that I missed, and then prime the inside of that leg. And then I think I'm going to put this back up on boards with casters. Boy, I'll tell you, this Harbor Freight cherry picker sure makes life a lot easier on some of these jobs. Right now I'm going to move the, I'm going to put the boards that I have the casters on. I'm going to bolt them onto the bottom of the leg here at the headstock end. Alright, so I now have the chip pan leg assembly disconnected from the cherry picker, and it's securely bolted with lag screws to these boards that have these nice casters on them. Well, this end I've got these heavy casters. That end I've got the kind of casters I used when I originally was moving the lathe that actually collapsed. One of them collapsed and broke. So, but I've got those down the lighter end. Right now, there is no lighter end. Eventually, that's going to be the lighter end because that'll be the tailstock end. Under the headstock end, I've got the heavy-duty ones here. So what this is going to do for me is now I'll be able to wheel this around the basement. So I'll be able to wheel it down the other end out of the way for now, while I work on cleaning and prepping the bed for priming and painting. And I got to get that foot off the bottom of the bed there and work on welding that. I also want to get going on cleaning up the SIP drill press, getting that straightened out. And then, not to mention, we've got the Vernon lathe sitting out there in the yard under a tarp that's not worth $5, the tarp that is. And we've got a very expensive investment of mine, the index mill, sitting under some much better tarps, but still out there, outside where I don't want it. So I want to at least get the head off of that down here.